Part 11. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 101. I was originally a classmate of the same class as him, but I got the governor's office before him, a year earlier. Xiao Mu Cheng, who told him that he didn't care when he was transferred to the governor's office, and he got a failing grade. I have no choice but to stay here for 2 years. The admiral who came with Mu Cheng was named Qin Kai. Unlike everyone here, he had a high nose bridge and deep eye sockets, but he had an Asian face, so at first glance you can tell he's of mixed race. Hearing his friend's words, Mu Cheng said unhappily, I originally went to that garrison. Alas, I actually worked very hard, but the evaluation I got in the end was not very good. That old woman is indeed very troublesome. She put herself. The ship girls all regard me as a daughter, but I regard them as a younger sister. The two of them are class enemies. So in the end I can only continue to study for a while, but it's just a matter of accumulation. Sugu looked at Mu Cheng and thought to himself, your ship girl is a complete child. You can see that there is nothing wrong with your daughter. What evil thoughts do you have in thinking that she is your sister? On the other side, Qin Kai spread his hands and said, I just assigned you to me this time. Of course, if you want to be outstanding, it depends on your performance, such as washing my feet. Mu Cheng sneered, do you want to have sex with you? Forget it, my taste is not that strong. Anyway, if I don't have an excellent evaluation, I'll be. It's rare to have such an opportunity, but I didn't think it was you at first. As for what Mu Cheng said, he was actually surprised at first. Qin Kai said, speaking of which, a newcomer like me shouldn't have come. Mainly because some countries over there still have warships, huge warships. Not a ship girl. Then there were 2 countries that were at odds with each other. One country wanted its navy to drive a warship to show off, but the ship capsized just halfway through. They met a deep-sea ship girl and almost sank. The show-off failed. And then they went to find trouble with the nearby garrison, saying that the support from their garrison was too slow, and then of course the garrison over there refused to recognize it. Mu Cheng said doubtfully, there are also battleships. I remember that many battleships have been converted into cargo ships, cruise ships, and even museums. There are still them. The supplies are a trap for them. But then, how is it handled over there? Originally, there was a treaty between the country and the ship girl. The country was warned by the ship girl headquarters, and then there was no sound immediately. They just asked the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to protest. Although it was later settled, it was still a troublesome matter. There are many. Originally, the town hall was going to accept your internship, but as a result, his townhouse probably wouldn't be safe, so he just changed it to me. Sugu didn't know much about the specifics of the internship and asked, how many months does the internship last? Qin Kai said, there are internship opportunities every once in a while. Because of some urgent matters, I even studied for a few months. In fact, the main reason is based on the battle with the deep-sea ship girl. Surrounded by juniors, he was the only one with a garrison. Qin Kai thought for a while and suddenly said, speaking of the battle with the deep-sea ship girl, there are some small news, please don't spread it outside. Some people say that the ship the mother headquarters has no intention of suppressing the deep sea. They are just trying to support the bandits for their own self-respect. Because rather than completely annihilating the deep-sea ship girl, the ship mother headquarters is more willing to see the deep-sea ship girl remain in a state of immortality, and then the garrison can simply just ensure the safety of sea areas and routes. Let's talk about a few deep-sea flagships that have been discovered: Deep-sea Shokakuzi Wikaku, Deep-sea Yamato, Fortress Heim, Deep-sea Akagakaga, Deep-sea Bismarck and Deep-sea Tirpitz. Apart from these, there are some deep-sea flagships that have not been discovered. Although the deep-sea flagship is very strong, the ship girls gathered at the ship girl headquarters can definitely be destroyed. However, in recent years, the ship girls headquarters has rarely organized an attack on the deep sea flagship. He didn't see people around him being stunned by him. He really didn't understand the rules. Qin Kai finally said, "Of course the gossip is just gossip, that's it anyway. But speaking of it, for the deep sea flagship I won't let my ship girl get into the battle." Mu Cheng also shook his head. He was not someone who had truly experienced the cruelty of war, and he valued his ship girl very seriously. He said, "I don't know how to do it either. Let's just keep the status quo." At this time, Lu Jianxu suddenly said, "The deep-sea ship girls have been completely wiped out, and it is difficult to guarantee our status." "You actually became an admiral for your own status," Mu Cheng said, with a hint of scolding in his voice, but the next second his voice became obscene. "Don't we become admirals for love and justice?" Suddenly the only people around him looked at him were white eyes. Mu Cheng then said with a straight face and a mysterious face, "As for rumors, I heard that the government is developing weapons and medicines that can control ship girls. Your sister, you pretend you haven't read the chapter in the 38th issue of Flowers, Snow and Moon, but you still swear by it? Does it say that Bismarck and her sisterhood were killed in a killing spree? There are also things that are inappropriate for children later. The plot of the..." Mu Cheng touched his chin and said, "But I still like Nelson in it. I always thought of her as Instructor Nelson in our academy. The scene where she and her sister Rodney are blooming is the best." Sitting next to him, Sugu felt more and more wrong as he listened. It turned out that he was not going to tell some secrets. Why did he suddenly become like this? Suddenly, Lu Jianxu said, "Speaking of which, my ship girl is Borg. She also appeared in the 17th issue." Mu Cheng was stunned for a moment and said, "My ship girls are Anthony, Blaine, and Cassin Yang. They seem to have appeared in the sunken obituary." Soon after everyone finished eating and walking on the road to the college, Sugu looked at Lu Jianxu's shiny face and asked, "Are you feeling a little better? That guy is interesting. Please invite him out more next time." The guy was talking about Mu Cheng. Then Sugu said goodbye to Lu Jianxu. On the way to class, York City asked, "What did you start talking about?" Sugu and the others avoided York City and the others when they were talking. "Nothing." York City randomly pulled a leaf from the tree on the roadside, tore the leaf into two pieces as he walked, and said, "If you don't say it, don't say it. I don't care about it either." Then in the afternoon, when Sugu was about to leave the classroom after finishing the class, he was suddenly stopped by Chi Bolin. "The place where you are going to intern is a small town in the south. The admiral of your garrison was originally a soldier, so don't be playful when you meet him. This time he happened to come over casually to report on his work, and you want to meet him." No need to be honest, Sugu was not ready and wanted to refuse. Zeppelin straightened her hair. She didn't have a good look at the man who kidnapped her senior, and continued, "But it's useless for you to refuse now. I told him that he is over there in the office now, so you can come with me." Walking through the corridor paved with yellow floor tiles and walking past the office, Sugu saw the admiral of the town hall where he was going to intern. He was at a small door near the infirmary at the end of the corridor. The admiral looked to be in his 30s. He was tall and straight, and his appearance looked majestic and meticulous. At this time, his left hand was holding the hand of a little girl. The little girl must be his ship girl, a destroyer. Thinking of this, Sugu said, "Hello." "Hello," the admiral responded with a smile, and then stretched out his hand. "There are calluses on the hands." The admiral continued, "I heard from Instructor Zeppelin that your ship girl is York City. She is a very powerful ship girl. I think you will become a very powerful admiral in the future. You are welcome to come to my garrison for internship." Sugu said modestly, "It's just that my luck is a little better." "Speaking of which, that's your ship girl." The weather is nice and have you eaten? These are common sentences between two people. For an admiral, who is your ship's wife, this is also a very common exchange. However, at this time, the admiral picked up the little girl and said, "Many people have asked me if this is my ship girl. I just want to say, of course not, this is my daughter. Daughter. My biological daughter, not my ship's wife. Isn't it strange? In fact, I had a daughter before I became an admiral. Her mother was an ordinary person. We both lived in my townhouse, and my ship's wife was also in the townhouse. My daughter goes to school in a nearby town. Speaking of the reason for coming here, in addition to reporting on my work, another reason for coming here is because I want to take my daughter to a big city to play." The admiral said to his daughter, "Call me uncle." The little girl sweetly shouted, "Hello, uncle." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 102. In the living room, Lexington helped Sugu pack his suitcase and said, "It's autumn now, the weather is getting colder, so you need to wear more clothes. Autumn clothes, long trousers, sweaters, and socks." If anyone was the most considerate, it was of course Lexington, who was always worried about not having enough to eat or clothing to keep warm. Now Sugu has experienced several kinds of coldness. One kind of coldness is that he feels cold, one kind of coldness is that his mother feels that you are cold, and now there is another kind of coldness that is that Lexington feels that you are cold. But to say who is the most considerate, of course it is Saratoga. The lovely sister-in-law can satisfy all your messy desires. She looks cold, indifferent but quirky, and the impact on people is always contrasted. I was scolded by Lexington just a few days ago, and I have been honest for a few days, but now I am starting to feel restless again. Sister Lexington, the Admiral is such a big man, you don't have to worry about it for him. Seeing Lexington preparing things with one hand, and not caring about the Admiral as the person involved, York City felt indignant. She is Lexington's follower and Akaga's support, but her own Admiral is the only one who dares not be interested. At this time, Lexington stuffed a change of clothes into the black suitcase and said, "He is just like Gaga. He doesn't know how to put on clothes when he's cold. If I don't help him prepare, it won't matter to him no matter how cold it is." York City felt jealous and said, "Sister Lexington, you dote on the Admiral too much. He is not a child now. My Admiral, who do I favor if I don't dote on you?" Suddenly York City had nothing to say. On the other side, Sugu and little Turpitz stood on the balcony. Sugu said, "I have received news that it is possible to find Turpitz, who is busy, but I have to wait until I come back from my internship. If I find Turpitz, I will probably find your cat sister, which is Bismarck. After you get out, you must be obedient and listen to your sister Lexington, and when you study, you will follow Sigsby and the others." "Admiral, how long do you have to go?" "It shouldn't take a long time, probably more than 10 days. Little Turpitz counted on his fingers and said, "More than 10 days is a long time." "What's so long about 10 days? There is still some time before Comic-Con, so there is still time. It will indeed be possible to find Turpitz by then." Turpitz was originally an unscrupulous lazy otaku who liked to draw her sister's books in the game. Regardless of these settings, she is also a powerful ship girl. Although I heard from my classmates that the Bismarck book was probably not painted by Turpitz, I couldn't believe it all. There was no way to meet him. If possible, he still wanted to meet the author of that book. Then if you find Bizai and Turpitz, you can also find Bismarck. It is not an easy task to find everyone in the original garrison, and even if you are an admiral, you cannot just sit and wait for the ship girl to come to your door, so you cannot let go of any possibility. However, after such a long time, I have already made preparations for future accidents. It would be best if my ship girl still recognized me as the admiral. If not, there was nothing wrong with her. But no matter what, Your attitude must be there, your own efforts must be made, and your own performance and attitude are your own. According to the news obtained from Firefly, although the little girl still could not find her way back, there was also news that she was in a small town called Scala. My eldest brother, the Prince of Wales, will be of great help to me if I find him. However, these days, he asked his classmates, started searching on the world map, but still couldn't find the town. He will continue to look for some related books in the next time. But compared to finding Tirpitz and the Prince of Wales, the more important thing now is probably to establish his own garrison. Moreover, it is easier to make money if you have a tutelary residence. To be honest, I feel a little guilty just eating soft rice now. Now he had no answer to the occasional inquiries from Sigsby's girls about when they could live together. When he has his own townhouse, he can give everyone a room, and at least change his image of Huang Shiren in Fletcher's mind. During this period of time, resources were really beyond his means. He had never thought about what life would be like without even daring to attack. To this day, the resources consumed by little Tirpitz and Saratoga have not been replenished. He thought that he was an obsessive-compulsive disorder patient who was dissatisfied with the discomfort of replenishment has now completely gotten rid of that problem. Think about it, it is not the ship girl who limits yourself now, but the resources. This means that the landlord's family really has no surplus food. Standing on the balcony, Sugu saw that the peppers planted by the landlord in the vegetable field far away had been hoed off, and the bamboo poles originally erected to grow beans had also been removed. The old woman who has worked hard all her life cannot settle down even in her old age. Just like many people of the older generation, people who have been busy all their lives are prone to problems once they are idle. Thinking like this, Lexington's voice came from the living room, "Admiral, do you need to prepare your toothbrush and towel?" Sugu said, "As for those, you can buy them when the time comes." Sometimes Lexington really behaves like his own mother, being treated like a child, afraid that you will not have enough to eat or keep warm. Sitting in the living room, Lexington was sorting her suitcase and backpack. She squatted on the ground and put the neatly folded clothes into the suitcase. After thinking about it, she looked at York City sitting next to her. She showed her majesty in a strange way, tucked her long flaxen hair behind her ears, and looked at York City, who was sitting on the sofa with an indifferent expression. "York City, I told you that if the Admiral is injured, I will take it upon you." No way. You are a ship girl. It doesn't matter if you get a little injured. We can provide resources and it will be easy to recover. But the Admiral is just an ordinary person. If he is injured, it will be difficult. You have to protect him. Even if you are injured, you cannot let him go. He was injured. Don't blame me for speaking harshly. I'm very strong. If the time comes, you can't beat me. For the first time, York City felt shivering while sitting on the sofa. She stretched out her fingers to twist her short golden hair, and lowered her head with some melancholy, thinking that after all, the reason Sister Lexington liked her was because she was the Admiral's ship. "It's about my mother." Then Sugu walked into the living room, heard Lexington's words, and said, "I'm not going to the battlefield, so I won't encounter any danger. Besides, I'm very timid and I'm not that easy to get hurt. But, even so, I don't want the Admiral to get hurt at all." Little Tirpitz's voice came from the balcony. Sugu heard little Tirpitz standing on the balcony shouting, "Fletcher! They are coming." Soon after, there was a knock on the door. Saratoga opened the door. Fletcher stood at the door with something in her hands. She said, "Well, I heard that Admiral you are going out, so I brought you some gifts." "There is no need to be so cautious, I am not a tiger that chooses people to eat." Seeing everyone's nervous expressions, Sugu said, "Your performance makes it seem like I'm doing something very important. Alas, it's just an ordinary internship. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck." Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De-Rong Yan. Chapter 103. In the southern townhouse, even in autumn, due to the south wind, the entire townhouse feels wet. At this time, in the room that served as the admiral's office, Sugu was working as an assistant. The owner of this townhouse, the admiral named Chen Nan, sat upright. He looked at Sugu sitting behind the desk in the corner of the office with his head down and writing with a pen. Then he stood up and opened the curtains on the window in the office and said, "Don't lower your head so much. If the light is not good, move the table to the window." "Fine." Chen Nan looked at Sugu, who was still lowering his head, and didn't try to persuade him. He thought for a moment and said, "You have to read every clause of this contract carefully. Don't let anyone take advantage of it. Read it first and pay attention to the format. If you don't understand the regulations, go to the bookshelf and look for a book. The thickest one is the one. That book was compiled by the Ship Girl headquarters and explains all the regulations. There are some common cases at the end. Many times the thing to do is follow the old routine." Sugu looked at the entire contract, which was as thick as a textbook. At this time, he held a pen and read the small words on the contract word by word. He felt like his head would explode. Over there, Chen Nan took a sip of coffee and then said, "You have to go to town with me tomorrow afternoon. In the last battle to suppress the deep-sea ship girls, our ship girls' artillery fire destroyed a house. There is no way, even if battles at sea are prone to accidents." Sugu raised his head and said doubtfully, "Is anyone injured? Do we have to pay compensation?" Chen Nan drank the coffee in one gulp, put down the cup, and said, "If you don't pay, that house is illegally built. We have repeatedly told you that we can't build a house there. If we don't pay, we can't pay even once, otherwise it will never end in the future, that's it. I told you, although many people in the countryside are very simple, there are also many unscrupulous people. So it is time for us as admirals to take action. When the time comes, we will first go to the quarters of their villages." Then he continued, "Most of the ship girls are good people, and good people have their weaknesses. When faced with rogues, there is often no way. As admirals, we need to protect the ship girls at this time so that she will not be criticized. There is no way to help them in combat, but we are not useless." Sugu responded. To a certain extent, he knew that the admiral was the bridge between ship girls and humans. Chen Nan tapped the table with his fingers again and said, "Also, someone in town will invite us to a banquet in 2 days. They are local nobles. We are going. Do you have a dress?" "Noble? Yes, this is a kingdom. There is a king here. Although he has no power, he is the king. Then, the person who invites us has a knighthood and is a local big shot. We have to give face to his invitation." Chen Nan pointed at the stack of documents on Sugu's desk and said, "Have you read the letter from the defense office next door inviting them to exercise? Please give me a reply. Remember that the resources will be provided by their defense government. We will send food to them. Oil giants go over there." Listening to what the other party said, Sugu was no longer in the mood to read the contract. Now all he could think about was what the other party said. There is one more important thing. When Sugu looked over, Chen Nan pointed to the map on the wall and said, "That defense area originally belonged to him. In the past few days, a formation of deep-sea ship girls has appeared. Yes, but their route is from here to here. If his garrison suppresses them in time, they will definitely not escape to our defense area." Chen Nan thought about it for a while and said, "So, you and I will go find trouble with them in 2 days. We are going to argue with them. Although the final task of suppression is probably still ours, at least we have to get rid of them. A resource is being extorted from your hands. The consumption of the garrison must be recorded, as well as the number of sorties. It will be submitted to the ship girl headquarters for review later. After the review, resources will be shipped over. This is part of our resource source. Sugu put down what he was doing and then raised his question. On the other side, Chen Nan explained, "What do you think we will do if we have a conflict with another town guard? You don't have to worry about so many things. You can just file a report and let the superiors send someone to mediate. But in the end it will definitely end with peace. You said they were plotting against you. There are so many conspiracies. You may be thinking too much. The admirals are very harmonious. Of course, you just don't want to show off to others. The government doesn't need to worry, those politicians, although they are cunning, they know the importance of things and do not dare to do things that are heartbreaking." Speaking casually, Chen Nan walked to Sugu's desk, pointed at a document, and said, "Look at this table and compare the consumption. The consumption during this period is obviously more. This is wrong. The fighting is getting more and more intense, it's difficult, and the deep sea appears more and more often, so we have to prepare, maybe there will be a big battle. Look at this information. This timber company did not pay us protection fees." "You mean protection fees? Is that weird? Of course we have to collect protection fees, otherwise we would really be managing such a big company with the salary from the ship girl headquarters. As long as you don't go too far, there will be no fish if the water is clear. We don't need to tell him personally, just mention it to the local government, and someone will help us put pressure on him and investigate his ship for smuggling. You're afraid that the ship girl will be harmed by some hooligans, so you find a big hooligan like the admiral as your backer? That's interesting. But my townhouse doesn't even have floor heating. Do you think he looks like a big hooligan? All the money is spent on running the town hall, and I really have no benefits. That's about it. Don't look so grim." Chen Nan smiled and asked a newcomer to come to his internship. Sometimes it can save trouble, but the most important thing is that he can have a lot of sense of accomplishment. Okay, I won't say any more, just read the information yourself." Soon after, Sugu finally stayed up until evening. After working hard all day, he packed his clothes in the room and then entered the bathroom. He boiled the hot water by himself, and everything had to be done by himself here. When he put firewood on the stove to heat the hot water, he missed Lexington for a while. He lay in the tub and looked at the mist lingering in the bathroom. The fatigue he had been feeling was finally relieved a little. Letting himself lie completely in the hot water, he thought a little unambitiously at this time that when he built the tutelage in the future, he must build a large bathtub, and the bathroom must be built in his room, and the hot and cold water system must also be built. After installing it, the burden of heating hot water was left to York City. I didn't see her all day. Soon after the water gradually lost its heat, I changed into dry clothes and walked out of the bathroom. He stood by the sink holding a basket of old clothes. The clothes had not been washed by himself for a long time. He randomly stuffed the clothes into the water, rubbed them, then lifted them up and wrung them out and hung them on the wire under the eaves. Sugu looked at the dripping clothes and thought, it really can't work, because Lexington has arranged so many things for him, so he doesn't have to worry about it normally, but now it's his turn to do a lot of things that he can't handle alone. If he continues to be arranged by Lexington like this, he will become a useless person. Not long after, Sugu was walking in the corridor with his neck twisted. He fiddled with his hair in front of the mirror on the wall. It was already a little long and he would have to cut it off soon. While arranging his hair, he said to himself, tomorrow I have to take stock of the resources in the warehouse. There is also mechanical maintenance. I am an admiral, not a repairman. He never thought that being an admiral would involve so many things. Fortunately, after taking a shower, he could finally relax and have a good sleep. Then he saw York City carrying a bag of things walking past him, seemingly not even intending to say hello to him. So Sugu decided to speak. York City, what are you doing today? I haven't seen you all day. York City said, ah, that. There seemed to be no way to avoid the question, and she didn't want to lie. She brushed her bangs and said, I'm traveling. Sugu was stunned and suddenly became angry. As expected, everything was compared. He said, I have worked so hard, and you are actually traveling. Who are you going with? Sister Li Mei, how did you get so many sisters? Who is Sister Li Mei? She is the wife of the admiral of the garrison, haven't you seen it before? And I have worked very hard to help you say good things in front of others. And the things you need to learn, that, I am a ship girl and I don't understand those things. Ah, just fight. These are not problems, I just want to say, what you brought, well, it is food, give me half. Sugu then left with his loot. York City looked a little disappointed at the messy night snack, thinking about avoiding his admiral tomorrow. Her good fortune didn't last long though, as her misery came the next day. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 104. Sugu needs to learn a lot of things, and as his ship girl, York City is not that good. Originally, Admiral Chen Nan's secretary ship, West Virginia, went on an expedition. There was no capable ship girl in the garrison, so York City had a day of rest. At this time, when West Virginia came back, it was time for York City to have a hard time. Arrive. Originally, when they were in the academy, Akagi and Lexington had a gentle temperament, and even if York City occasionally made mistakes, they would not scold them loudly. However, at this time, West Virginia, the secretary ship of the garrison, did not have such a good temper. At this time, West Virginia crossed her arms and looked at York City on the sea, and said, "You are really academic. Academic knowledge is very good, but when it comes to battle, you seem very anxious." She watched the carrier-based aircraft belonging to York City flying in the sky, but the ship-based aircraft could not hover well over the several destroyers that were opponents in the exercise. Those ship-based aircraft either overtook or fell behind, and were even occasionally blown away by the sea breeze. Now, I can't even do the diving and lifting movements well. This is only a carrier-based aircraft. If it is an aircraft operated by a real pilot, the pilot must be taught a bloody lesson. But now, York City is not much better. West Virginia shouted loudly, "Can't a few little girls aim? You are still an aircraft carrier. Even a light carrier can do such a simple thing. Compared with light carriers, aircraft carriers only have more carrier-based aircraft. The control of carrier-based aircraft has nothing to do with the ship's equipment. So what if you are not as good as a light carrier?" He was complaining like this in his heart, but York City didn't dare to say it out at all. After a long time, York City whispered, "They are very fast, more than 30 knots. However, what greeted York City was a scolding. Is more than 30 knots comparable to the speed of your plane? I have seen powerful aircraft carriers who can sink all these destroyers in one shot. The aircraft carriers I've seen, Sister Akagi and Sister Lexington, can sink you in one round. Who doesn't know two powerful people?" Without his sister by his side and surrounded by his seniors, York City has a completely spoiled character. But despite this, she did not dare to refute as she thought, and just controlled the carrier-based aircraft to chase the high-speed destroyer. However, this is not something that can become powerful just because the small universe explodes in the heart. Her carrier-based aircraft still cannot hit the destroyer properly, but it is just a waste of ammunition. After a while, seeing that he had no results, York City said weakly, "The main reason is that the wind is very strong today." While York City was talking like this, a cannonball suddenly hit her on the head, and then her whole face became colorful. After all, it was a drill, and the ammunition used could not hurt people, but it would still be embarrassing. West Virginia said loudly, You, Now you have to deduct at least 9 points of armor. Are you controlling the carrier-based aircraft and forget about yourself? The enemy is already targeting you, be careful to dodge. York City said, here I am required to control a carrier-based aircraft, and there I am required to dodge artillery shells. I can't do both. She felt that she was reasonable. Originally, it was difficult to be distracted by controlling such an aircraft. He actually had to dodge the attack. This was even more unreasonable than his own admiral. To be an excellent aircraft carrier, you must at least use it for dozens of tasks. I have seen those powerful aircraft carriers. Each of their carrier-based aircraft is like a dedicated pilot. They cooperate with each other exquisitely and aim at many targets at the same time. Look at you, control this one and forget about that one. Sure enough, the study time at school was short, and the shortcomings suddenly became apparent. He was probably like York City when he was inattentive to his head and body. West Virginia has put forward countless opinions on York City. Although she is not an aircraft carrier, she has fought side by side with aircraft carriers so many times, and she knows a lot about everything. If all the ship girls were classified as level 100, this York City would not even be at level 5. The strongest aircraft carrier I have ever seen is estimated to be at least 70. However, despite the complaints in his heart, the disgraced York City changed its mentality little by little under the command of West Virginia. West Virginia kept saying, a formation must first ensure superiority in battle. While advancing at high speed, even if it is not easy for the ship to turn, go around in front of the enemy to ensure a optimal formation. If you are the flagship, you may need to change the formation according to the battlefield conditions. Speed is very important. In addition to Sugu having to study, York City finally accepted her destiny today, and she didn't stop all day long. At night, a pair of brothers and sisters in distress gathered together. Sugu glanced at York City's chest where his shirt was wet and clinging to his skin, then turned his head and listened to York City's gossip. She is just an old witch. She is not married yet, and she is so good at training others. Chen Nan's secretary ship was not his wedding ship, and Chen Nan did not marry several shipwives like ordinary admirals, and naturally it was not close to 10 like Sugu. Regarding the relationship between a ship girl and an admiral, generally speaking, it is easy for a ship girl to have a good impression of her admiral. It is rare for a ship girl like Chen Nan to be unmarried. York City complained a few words, and then said, look at this family, there is only one wife from the beginning to the end. It's not like you, who has Sister Lexington and takes action against Saratoga. After a while, Sister Akagi, are you going to give me a ring? Of course Akagi is also very good. There is nothing wrong with being a man. Sugu was neither embarrassed to say that he would not nor was he embarrassed to say that he was, so he said, I don't know. York City tilted his head and said, but it's strange, they seem to have a good relationship. Aren't you married several times? Why doesn't he marry a ship girl? The love between him and his wife is indeed be loyal and unswerving. Then York City found Sugu looking at her, and she said, don't look at me. Do you want to marry me? No, don't even think about it. I'll kick you. Kicking is still York City's mantra. The word someone was laughed at by Sugu for a long time, and she never mentioned her original catchphrase of dating someone again. Sugu glanced at York City again, turned away his face, and thought to himself, York City didn't seem to notice the bulge on his chest. Then York City said, West Virginia is very beautiful even if she is not a ship girl. Why is she not married? It's so strange. Finally, Sugu couldn't help but said, don't pry into other people's private affairs. I don't say it in front of outsiders. York City was tough, but she did not continue the original topic and said, speaking of why Sister Lexington is so strong, I saw her once operate a carrier-based aircraft, even in a small room. Hit the wall. Have you been in a lot of fights before? Sugu stretched out a finger and said, "Of course there are many battles. Do you know how many times my ship girl has gone on battles in total? 100. Sugu shook his head. 1,000? That's not right. How much is it? Sugu retracted his finger and said, 10,000, at least 10,000. Bragging, even if you attack once a day, it takes 10,000 times. Let me do the math. York City clapped her fingers. She was not very good at mathematics, and it took a long time to figure out an accurate number. In the end, York City simply ignored it and said casually, "It will take decades. And if it is against a weak deep-sea ship girl, there is no way to gain combat experience. It means that cruelty will not improve people at all. It must be an equally matched opponent. If you think about it, it will take longer. In fact, there are not tasks every day. Once a week is not bad. If you think about it, it is impossible to do it 10,000 times." York City showed a mocking expression and said, "It's too exaggerated. Even the strongest garrison can't do this many times. Admiral, you can't even brag." Sugu said, "What did I lie to you for? It's fun to lie to me. You don't always say that. How many people have you lied to? You lied to Xiao Zai and said you would help you rub her back, and then you took her swimming. In fact, you just stood at the beach and didn't touch the water. You lied to Thatcher and said that you could take her to play alone for an afternoon. You also told several people at the same time that you asked Sigsby to rub your shoulders, let Thatcher pinch your face, and let Shally Wen helped you run errands, and you took several people out with you that afternoon, you liar. It's not stupid to go swimming in the autumn. Besides, it's not a lie, it's just to tease the little girl." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 105. It has been more than a week since he came to Sugu for internship. It is impossible to master the things that an admiral should know proficiently in such a short period of time, but now he has a certain understanding of the job of admiral. Impression. As for more things, we will have to wait until we have our own garrison in the future to work and study at the same time. Anyway, as an admiral, he will not easily cause a big accident. The sea breeze at night blew the curtains in the office and swayed. Under the dim light, Chen Nan sat behind the desk and fiddled with the globe. Rest is a break, but he never likes to procrastinate at work, and a large pile of documents on his desk has already been signed. At this time, he was lying on the armchair and looking at Secretary West Virginia standing next to him and said, "Xiao Su is very powerful. You only need to teach him once and he will remember anything." Yeah. After saying this, he turned the pen in his hand with some boredom. The pen felt good in the hand and had the right weight. The only drawback is that it gets blocked easily, so now I can only dip in ink and write a few words. He remembered that he originally had a quill. Although it was not easy to use, it looked very powerful. His friend saw it and asked him for it many times but was rejected. Unfortunately, it was scrapped in the hands of his daughter. Chen Nan said, "No matter how ridiculous things are, he takes them for granted. It seems that he has seen many dark sides in the world. He talks about nail-biting households, troubles, power exchanges, and contract fraud. He talks about pyramid schemes and Ponzi. I don't even understand scams, but he even understands operations. His brainstorming ability is also very powerful. There are some things that I am not suitable for saying and can only understand but cannot explain in words. I just click on them and I will know." It was already late at night. As his secretary's ship, West Virginia had no reason to take a rest before the admiral took a rest. For this reason, she usually stayed by his side late at night. She asked, "So what is your evaluation this time? How are you going to give it to me? You have always been kind to the admirals who came here in the past, right? Just give it to an outstanding young man. He is indeed a good young man." And I asked him. He has only studied for a while and was able to be transferred to the town hall. It seems that the higher UPS have something to do with it. West Virginia said, it's a bit too much. For such a newcomer, it's against the rules. It's nothing too much. Admiralship is not a job that is just a carrot and a pit. If you get it, you can't get it by others. As long as you have the ability, you can choose the garrison. The local government is still looking forward to more people coming. The academy is very happy. His study is to ensure that everyone can go smoothly in the town hall. Since he has connections, the town hall will not be in danger easily, which is a good thing. I have no contact with him, so I don't know what he is like. But his ship girl York City is very powerful. West Virginia stood there and said this. She thought of York City, who had a strong learning ability and was a fighting maniac. That's it, but aren't you tired of standing all the time? Go sit over there. Chen Nan watched West Virginia standing, and then stretched out her finger to point in the same direction, which was the corner of the office, where there was a coffee table and 2 sofas. Then Chen Nan walked over, raised the teapot and gestured to West Virginia, and asked, would you like some tea? No, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep at night. Oh well. He poured himself a cup of tea, then sipped it bit by bit and said, do you think that York City is awesome? After all, it is a regular aircraft carrier. Although she is still quite green now, she is learning very quickly. Moreover, she has a lot of theoretical knowledge, and now she is short of practice. I took her on a sortie 2 days ago, and she was able to defeat her easily. A deep-sea destroyer. Then he seems to be a very good admiral as well. As they talked, the sea breeze became stronger and stronger, the curtains were blown by the wind, and the glass windows hooked with window hooks made a clanging sound in the sea breeze. Then West Virginia walked to the window and closed it. It might rain. West Virginia looked out the window worriedly, thinking that it would be troublesome to return to the dormitory if it rained. She said, speaking of which, Admiral, it's already very late. If you don't go back, Madam will be worried. Chen Nan sat on the sofa and said, isn't there something wrong with me? What do you want to do? Have tea? You've finished your work. Chen Nan was stunned for a moment. Of course his secretary knew that he had something to do, so he sighed and said, there's nothing to do when we go back anyway. It's the same if we stay here. The child will miss you. Komaki, she's probably asleep now. It's not good if you don't go back all the time. Finally, Chen Nan sighed and said, okay, please stop meddling in my family affairs. Chen Nan glanced at West Virginia and saw that she was a very powerful ship girl. She had been in this townhouse for several years. It was hard to imagine that she had grown from a carefree ship girl to what she is now. By now, there is nothing that West Virginia is not good at in this garrison. Now she is even good at taking care of children, whether it is the destroyers in the garrison or her own children. For such a person, even his female wife cannot find any fault. Without her, half of the garrison would be abandoned, but sometimes things are too lenient. Then Chen Nan said, speaking of which, I've been coming here for a long time, and I haven't taken them to take a good stroll here. Thinking in his mind, he waved his hand to West Virginia and said, you go back first, I will be out in a minute. Oh well. He looked at West Virginia's back and sighed deeply. As the office door closed, the huge office was empty. Then he drank the tea in his cup without sitting for a long time. After drinking the tea, he stood up. Because he knew very well that even if the other party was driven to rest by him, if he was still in the office, she would definitely be waiting in the corridor outside the office. In order to stop the other party from waiting, he would go home. The next day, Chen Nan and Sugu were standing by the dock. He suddenly asked, are you religious? No, I don't believe in any section. Although Sugu has begun to believe in ghosts and gods after experiencing such a magical thing, it is difficult for him, who has never been a religious person, to believe in an illusory God. Your internship period is almost over. I've never taken you to visit the neighborhood for so long. This time I plan to take you to the largest church in the area. Whatever, but Brother Chen, are you religious? Having faith is a good thing, and everyone should learn to be reverent in their hearts. Sugu thought for a moment and said, does worshipping ancestors but not ghosts and gods count as having faith? That doesn't matter. It's also a belief. It doesn't require you to believe in anything. So it's settled. After the internship, you can take a good rest and I will take you for a walk. Although Sugu did not believe in religion, he did not reject these things. He was also interested in a church. He had only heard of it before but never actually seen it. He asked, where is that church? In the nearby town. Let me tell you, that church is different from other churches. The priest there is served by a ship girl. I often go there. How can a ship girl be a priest? Her gender is wrong. A priest does not necessarily need to be a man. It is just a position, just like sir. If you are a powerful woman, you can also call her sir. Alas, I didn't want to say it at first, but it is actually because the church is not a serious church. Until now, I don't know whether it should be called a church, a monastery, or something else. It's all mixed together, but I still don't understand the difference between a church and a monastery. Chen Nan continued, but at least that church looks very good, with blue tiles, white walls, relief murals, and a large square outside. There is a fountain pool in the middle of the square with koi fish, and there are people who are specializing in the fountain pool. Next to Make-A-Wish, there are also groups of white pigeons on the square. The white pigeons fly like clouds. It is a very beautiful place. Yeah. Let's go and have a look after the internship. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai Rong Yan. Chapter 106. That church was built on a small island in the south. Generally speaking, few ordinary people go there. After all, judging from the current civilization, traveling around is still the privilege of a few people. At this time, there were only original residents on the island, and they built a small town here. The town was built on the slopes of the mountains. From a distance, it had a layered feel. Chen Nan took Sugu and York City to the pier of this small town in their own boat. Then they walked up a long step by the pier to the top and saw the church. There is a square outside the church, a circular square paved with diamond-shaped stone tiles. There were not many people in the square at this time, neither ordinary people nor traders. There were only a large group of pigeons pecking and walking on the square, and suddenly a gust of wind took them all flying. Then Sugu saw the church. The pointed double-vaulted roof has carved wood veneer, sky blue painting, and golden lily patterns. The small round window with rose petals hollowed out on the lintel is slim and elegant. Black and white marble is paved on the ground, and tall pillars are placed one after another in the hall. Sugu looked up at the murals on the ceiling of the church. This church was different from the church in his impression. There were almost no statues of gods here. Chen Nan said at this time, although this is a church, God is not worshipped here. This is the prayer hall, this is the confessional. The original confessional. Believers confessed their sins to legitimate clergy, repented of the sins they complained about, and made amends. After being forgiven by the same clergy, they received forgiveness from God for the sins committed after baptism. At the same time, they also received forgiveness from God, reconciling the church that sin has harmed. But this is not a serious church. Although it is built like this, it can be called a confessional. The main reason is that I don't know what to call it. Consultant Su asked, then what's the effect? It's probably used to enlighten the ship's girls or admirals. Sugu said, what's there to enlighten you about? Being an admiral does not mean that you have a smooth journey and don't need to take care of everything. On the contrary, the bigger the garrison is, the more troubles there are. In the eyes of outsiders, the admiral has infinite glory. Only he knows the pain. For example, if he has feelings for those beautiful girls, because of the infinite expansion of desire for power, girls with power, money, and beauty increasingly feel superior in front of others. A ship girl is only loyal to her admiral. This kind of loyalty without interests is like poison. In many cases, it takes a lot of experience to ensure that one's own inner demons do not breed. Otherwise, the more silent it is, the more time comes. The more terrifying it is when it breaks out. Sugu said, so this church is actually used to enlighten people instead of praying and repenting. Actually, the more someone says like you that he has never concealed anything, the more he conceals it in his heart. Of course, Chen Nan had no way of knowing what the other person thought, so at this time, he judged others by himself. In addition to wanting to bring the other person to see him at the beginning, he also hoped that the other person would not hold too many things in his heart and could speak out when necessary. Chen Nan added, Xiao Su, do you want to try it? It will make you feel better if you say it. Sugu quickly waved his hands and said, I really have nothing to feel bad about. Chen Nan said, for example, if evil thoughts arise occasionally, let someone enlighten them. No matter how evil you are in your heart, it doesn't mean you have done something wrong if you haven't done it. After all, who doesn't have a few evil thoughts in their heart? When I came out of the army and became an admiral, the power I had was different from what it was before. What I wanted to do most was I took my ship girl to show off in front of my former colleagues. The enemy I had argued with before, I really wanted to give him a few words in front of his boss and let his boss wear small shoes for others. He used to be an intern at my guard house. The new guy doesn't respect me, and I really want to fail his assessment. When you hear this, especially the last sentence, does it remind you to put your identity in order? The newcomer was shivering. However, Sugu also knew that his senior might not be a very powerful admiral, but as a soldier, he was a bit serious and rigid when doing things, with a lot of dogmatism, but he was fair and just and would not get angry because of your disrespect. Angry. During this period of contact, whether it was communicating with ordinary people or local high-ranking officials, he could neither be humble nor arrogant, nor bully the weak nor fear the strong, and he could do things with a clear conscience no matter what. But Sugu still said the same thing, I really have nothing to say. I don't have that kind of thought anymore. I am a very casual person. What about some evil thoughts? Do you have thoughts about destroyers? As awesome as destroyers are, I don't have any evil intentions. Then what do you want to do to use your power to force the ship girl to serve you? I don't need to do anything to gain profit from power. If I want to do it, Lexington, Saratoga or Akagya, no matter which one is more ugly, it can be achieved with a little bit of means, but up to now everyone is still it's a very pure relationship, but of course I'm worried that I won't be able to hold it any longer. Sugu replied affirmatively, I have never thought about this kind of thing. I am not a beast. I have my own morals. Well, I still think about it occasionally, but I don't think about it to the point where I need enlightenment. As Sugu said this, he saw York City standing next to him holding a bag of snacks and listening without saying a word. The latter was so fascinated that he didn't even take a piece of the snack in his hand, probably because he was afraid of being pinched by his fingers. The sound of rustling potato chips or chewing in the mouth can interrupt a good show. Then York City heard no sound, and she also noticed her admiral looking at her. In the sight of his admiral, York City turned his head impatiently as he resumed the movement of his hands. I thought to myself, it's just for listening, and it's not a big secret. I won't tell Sister Lexington or Sister Akagya, nor will I use it as a handle to blackmail others. Is it necessary to be so careful? York City turned her head. After a while, her admiral's voice had not yet appeared. She turned around and looked at her admiral, who was still looking at her. No matter what he was looking at, she would never move away anyway. Chen Nan said, I have never paid much attention to psychological counseling before. Some ship girls will slip into the abyss in the confusion step by step. Rather than treating this place as psychological counseling, it can be regarded as a place in a tree hole. Even if they listen, they will not go their side story. I don't like to tell the secrets in my heart, and I don't need a tree hole. However, facing Chen Nan, who looked at me with good intentions, his hypocrisy came into play again. Sugu said, it will make people feel comfortable to tell their secrets, but Brother Chen, you brought me here not only to let me see a church. Saying this, Sugu saw York City looking over again. What a troublesome woman. Chen Nan said, you have been working very hard, and I always see you sitting there in silence. You must be holding something in your heart. It would be better to speak out if you can, in a tree hole. Chen Nan continued, there is no one who does not have evil thoughts in his heart, but as long as he does not act, it doesn't matter. There is a word for people like you, yes, it is silent lamb. Silent lambs like you explode. The most terrifying thing is when you get up. Once you feel that it doesn't matter, you will do some terrible things. The education I received doesn't believe in psychological counseling. I used to fight and kill people in the army, and my hands were already stained with blood. I always felt that even if I died, I would go to hell. Many of my comrades thought it didn't matter before, but only after they retired did they realize that they had problems in their hearts. For example, they suspected that they had killed someone. Is there something wrong with so many people? I feel that I have been used as a gun by politicians, and I feel that I am not protecting my country at all. Later, it gradually develops to the point where I have some problems in my heart. If I had known about it earlier, I would not have become a that's it. Chen Nan patted Sugu on the shoulder and said, if you have any evil thoughts, don't tell me, and don't take it as speaking to anyone, just treat it as speaking to God. You don't need to say it the first time. There are too many, just say something, tree holes, or something. We admirals, the more we constrain ourselves to be an excellent admiral, the easier it is for us to fall into distortion. Then when some bad thoughts appear in our minds, we doubt whether we have done something wrong, and try our best to suppress them. In the end, it is easy to doubt ourselves. Speak out and let others enlighten you. In fact, it is normal to have any evil thoughts. You don't need to worry about it. After being tapped on the shoulder, Sugu walked into the confession room, which was a little dark. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 107. Sugu stood in the dark room. He had never been to a confession room. He didn't need to confess or use a tree hole. He wasn't even used to confiding anything to anyone. He was unwilling to be pushed in at this time. He remembered that the confessional, also known as the confessional, is the sacrament of penance, one of the 7 sacraments in the Catholic faith. Believers confess their sins to legitimate clergy, repent of the sins they accuse and make amends. After being forgiven by the same clergy, they receive forgiveness from God for the sins committed after baptism. He himself had never committed a crime, and there was nothing he could say at this time. But thinking about what my seniors said, this is not a serious church. Although this place is still called a confession room, perhaps there is another word to describe it, a psychological counseling room. At this time, Sugu knocked on the wall of the confessional and asked, is there anyone there? Are you a ship girl? A gentle and tolerant voice came, I am a ship girl. I said, is there really an admiral here to express his true feelings? Yes, because being an admiral also brings a lot of pressure. You really can't tell me what I said. Don't worry, I'm a ship girl. Power and money don't matter to me. Even after I came here, I never left. For such a long time, we have heard all kinds of secrets, and there has never been anything the message gets out of us. There was a hint of relief in his gentle voice. If you have anything to say to us, don't say it if it's difficult. If you have anything difficult or entangled, you can also tell us. It would be best if we can help you. Help others or our pursuit. Sugu didn't know whether it was true or not, but he just followed what others said, so he believed it for now. At this time, he leaned against the wall of the confessional, thought for a moment and said, if I have to say something, it would be that I feel a little homesick. I miss my dad, my mom, and my brother. If you miss home, then go back and visit. Sugu let out a long sigh and said, if I could, of course I would, but I probably would never go back after being here for so long. He didn't know what his home had become like. Even though he was here, life is good, but I always miss home. He then continued, after I graduated from college, I returned to my hometown and started working. My hometown is a small city in the 7th or 8th tiers, and the pace is slow and the wages are low. Later I started working hard when I wanted to take the civil service exam. My parents were also very supportive. The purpose of taking the civil service examination is just to wait for drought and floods to ensure harvest. With my ability, I have been thinking that even if I pass the civil service examination, I will probably be a section clerk for the rest of my life, and at most I will be a section chief. If I don't take the exam, I will probably go back to the countryside and continue to open a small business at home. I work as a store owner and then take care of my parents because my brother will definitely not go home to do anything. My brother graduated first and later became an armed policeman. But he finally came out and became a civil servant. Civil servants are very powerful for a family like ours. After I graduated, I couldn't make it in an ordinary company, so I started preparing for the exam. In fact, a lot of it was influenced by my brother. Preparing for the exam had no results, haha, and then I became an admiral. You may not believe it, but I have many ship girls, but then I left my garrison. A long time later, I met one of my ship girls, a child. She was very cute. She said she wanted me to rebuild the townhouse, and I agreed to her. I have lived with her for a long time, and sometimes I even wonder if it will develop into a plot like White Rabbit Candy. The plot of White Rabbit Candy is very good, but I think the ending is a little perverted. Of course, I mainly like the little girl in the drama, Ashita Aina. Sugu was originally leaning on the wall of the confession room, and while talking, he slid down from the wall and sat on the ground. This was not his secret, but he didn't know why he suddenly wanted to say something. He probably had been holding it in his heart for too long. The little girl is very cute and sensible. I like it very much. How should I describe that kind of liking? Of course you don't misunderstand that I have thoughts about little girls. I'm not that perverted. Toys, daughters, and sisters are all mine. That was the thought from the beginning. But now that we have been together for so long, I still like her and want to take care of her. Then I met my ship girl again. The ship girl that I didn't like at first was very nice to me, so I was ashamed. Then I met a new ship girl. They are a pair of sisters. Well, you like me a lot, so that's it. I have thoughts about sisters because they are very beautiful and cute. Although I say I don't want it, I really want to in my heart. Yes, I am a man, and men are so evil. What should I do? If so, I can do it, but I don't want to do it. I am an adult and have my own dogmas, so I don't think about problems with my lower body. He didn't want to tell the specific story. He was just saying something casually at this time, and he didn't want to confess, so he didn't care whether the other party could understand him or not. In fact, I like San Juan, Sisters, York City, and Akagi all. Sugu laughed and said, "The only person who can truly be said to be full of evil is me. I myself think I am a scumbag. To be honest, I also like them, but I think I'm not good enough for them. I'm really not a great person. I know a little bit about everything but am not proficient in anything. They are so dazzling that no matter how hard I try, I can't compare to them. Fortunately, I don't have much objection to eating soft food. Although I am still a little ashamed of eating girls' soft food, I am also a little complacent. Think about it, it is shameful to be a man. My previous ambition was to find a job. I have to work until death, but my current ambition is to be a housewife. They fight outside, and I prepare hot baths and meals for them at home. Haha. To be honest, my ship girl, she is a perfect woman. To be honest, people like me can't compare to her, not even at all. On this point, sometimes the more I think about it, the more entangled I become." After talking nonsense, Sugu suddenly felt a little better. "Of course I won't tell the real secret, and I won't tell anyone." Then there was a sound coming from the other side of the wall. Many admirals have always had this idea, and many admirals have said this question. Does my ship girl like me because I am an admiral, or because of my charm? I am a ship girl, and I also have an admiral, but now I can't find my admiral. If you ask me, I think if you like it, you will like it. It's just that you humans like to struggle with such problems. For us ship girls, being able to stay with an admiral, it is enough to make people feel at ease by being around them. After all, this is not a pairing, black with black and white with white. For us, the admiral does not need to be very capable, as long as he can make us feel happy. If we must say it, we are admirals to each other. Let's consider our relationship with the ship girl as fate. After all, you are not looking for a boss, subordinates, or partners. You have to find someone with strong abilities. When you are looking for a husband, you are looking for a husband who can make you feel at ease. You don't need to be powerful, just feel at ease. I don't know what to say, but since this is the case, it's enough for you to be nicer to your ship girl, and just try harder. In the confession room, Sugu smiled. He didn't look away that much, but he was a little confused. He knocked on the wall and said, "It's just that my senior insisted on me coming. I just said it casually. It's not a big deal. I'm very heartless." Sugu walked out of the confession room. The woman with long pink hair and a black nun's outfit on the other side of the wall was a little confused. She only felt that the voice in the confession room was somewhat familiar. She was still thinking, and soon her companion ran over and patted her on the shoulder. "Exeter, what are you thinking about?" "Looking for the lost ship girl." Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 108. As Exeter walked down the corridor, the sunlight shone through the flowered windows and reflected colorful spots on the black and white floor. The breeze blew, and the curtains embroidered with lilies were blown up by the wind. After everyone ran around in the garrison, he left with his sister York, and after wandering for a while, he came to this island. It had been a long time since he came to this island. The main reason for coming to this island is because there is a church here. Of course it can be called a monastery, but it's a mess anyway. This church was mainly to help those confused ship girls and admirals. The two of them were very interested in this kind of thing that could help others, and soon became nuns here. Everything is fine here, the only embarrassing thing is the name. Some people call us nuns, some call us priests, and some call us ladies. The most troublesome ones are those who call us nuns. They always feel that the title is terrible and would rather be called monks. I remember once I was sitting on the edge of the square and heard someone talking. "The people here are all nuns, all ship girls." "You mean those nuns?" "They are ship girls, and they are very beautiful." The admiral, who was at least in his 50s, always liked to use the title of nun. Sitting next to me, I felt so embarrassed and didn't dare to speak. It has been a long time since she became a nun in the church on this island. She has a simple life and a simple heart. My sister, York, couldn't stand this kind of life, and later left for a distant place, and she was the only one who was still here. Although life is very dull, I really like this kind of life. I feel deeply honored to be able to help those admirals and ship girls who are in confusion. During these times, I heard many prayers, confessions, or tree caves from admirals or ship girls. Some admirals feel bewildered by their growing desire for power and control. Some admirals feel uneasy about their greed because they are married to many ship girls and cannot take care of everyone at the same time. There is also an admiral who repented for putting the ship girl in danger and causing everyone to sink. However, although he repented, he did not seem to feel any regret. He firmly believed that he was not wrong and that he was working hard for everyone's lives and property. Even he himself was injured and disabled. As I listened to it, I thought, why should I repent if I don't regret it? I don't quite understand. Human beings are very complex beings, unlike ship girls who are often simple-minded. They are sometimes noble and sometimes despicable. They flatter their superiors and bully their subordinates and long for power, but they are able to sacrifice their lives for mercy when it comes to big issues of right and wrong. They have produced heroes and criminals. Because humans have difficulty communicating, many ship girls need humans as admirals. During these times, I also helped many ship girls. For example, a ship girl who has a twisted love for her admiral and wants to keep him by her side forever. Another example is that a ship girl said she wanted to soak her admiral in formalin and make it a specimen to keep with her forever. I felt relieved. I wonder if she did it later? I don't know, but that kind of thing is not okay. The most I can do is lock myself up as the admiral. It seems that there are also ship girls who come to confess, saying that they want to reverse their admiral, but they haven't done it yet. They are a little hesitant and want to come here to find the answer. There was even a ship girl who once told her that her admiral had escaped and if she found him, she would lock him up like a dog. I remember that the voice was a little familiar, but I didn't pay attention to it. Later, I saw the Prince of Wales feeding pigeons in the square outside the church. I almost couldn't recognize her. Her long golden hair was not pinned on her head with a hairpin like before but was hanging down. However, even though it was the Prince of Wales and someone he knew, when he remembered the voice in the confessional, he didn't dare to go up and say hello. I missed that opportunity, but unfortunately I never saw the Prince of Wales again. At this time, Exeter thought of the Prince of Wales, and also thought of his former garrison and his admiral. When did you arrive at the garrison? A deep-sea suppression operation codenamed Operation Valkyrie. Those who came to the garrison with him were his sister York, as well as the Vanguard, Queen Elizabeth, and Ark Royal. It seems that the submarine U-81 also arrived at that time. However, among so many people, only the Vanguard was favored. She immediately got the opportunity to practice, but she was always laughed at as the girl who took the blame. Vanguard's nickname is Potguard, and Lexington's nickname is Madam, but she is indeed the Admiral's first wedding ship, so there is nothing wrong with calling her Madam. Saratoga is sister-in-law, Bismarck is called Cat, Quincy is Ovo, and many ship girls have nicknames. And what about yourself? The kind that is completely forgotten. I remember that I first went to a big library with my sister York. There were many books in the big library, and some of the books introduced the ship girl. At that time, I read it with curiosity. Lexington's information was written in many pages. Some of the deeds were even accompanied by pictures and some vivid illustrations. There is also a lot of information about turpits, and some people even wrote strange construction metaphysics about the construction of turpits. Later, I turned to the information introducing myself to Exeter, and the thin piece of paper was not even filled up. It seemed that I was not only inconspicuous in the eyes of my admiral, but also in the eyes of the world. Although I thought at the beginning that I didn't have any expectations for myself, when I actually flipped through the book in my hand and saw that there was nothing about myself, I felt a sense of loss. For these things, Sister York even wanted to argue with the staff in the big library, but was later persuaded to leave. Think about it, no matter what, it's not easy to get all the way to this point. At this time, Exeter, who was holding a lot of books and wearing a black nun's dress with long pink hair, was walking down the solemn and elegant corridor. She was recalling the past as she walked, when a companion who also worked in this church came over. "Exeter, how are you? Can you help any of the confused admirals and ship girls today?" Exeter said, "Yes, a confused admiral. Sure enough, it's better to stay here. Compared to the previous town hall, at least I still have a sense of presence here. It feels good to be needed and asked for by others. I don't have to act like a transparent person every day, and no one even remembers my name. Well, I hate it when people call the aircraft carrier Essex and my York-class heavy cruiser Exeter wrong. I am not a dumpling, and I don't like eating dumplings. What kind of confusion is it?" Exeter shook his head and said, "It cannot be said that keeping secrets is the most basic requirement we have for ourselves." "Really? Then don't ask me to accompany you when you go out at night." Although she is afraid of the night, it is still insignificant in terms of professional standards. Exeter said, "If you don't scream, don't scream. Everyone trusts us to tell us what is in our hearts and spread the prohibition. So those perverted lolicon guys who have ideas about destroyers need to be exposed. As long as you don't do it and just think about it, everyone has delusions in their minds. Besides, although most people keep saying that lolicons like destroyers, it is just the love of the elders for the younger ones and the teasing between admirals. What if it's really done? And it won't be exposed?" This time it was Exeter's turn to be confused, and she said honestly, "I don't know, but you are my senior, you should know." The companion opposite laughed and said, "Don't tell anything, don't tell anyone, you can only know it yourself, otherwise our church will be finished if word spreads, and no one will believe us. As for those perverted Lolita control, just leave it to the military police, they have plenty of spies." He smiled and then thought of something. At this time, his companion asked, "Speaking of which, there are 2 admirals coming this time. Do you want to get to know them?" "No, I have an admiral. Even if he doesn't like me, as long as he doesn't say he doesn't want me, I will never leave him." Suddenly his companion muttered, Old maid. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 109. In the church hall, Chen Nan was talking to someone. She was a girl wearing a nun's outfit. At least she looked like a girl. "This is the new person who is interning at your place. He looks very good. Leah, you have to scare people." Chen Nan looked at the other party. The girl had a cheerful personality and sometimes couldn't control her words. She didn't look holy and pious at all. She might as well be a salesperson somewhere. However, it is her personality that makes her talk to everyone. He has come here many times, and the other party has explained his doubts and enlightened him many times. He is considered a close friend. People who don't know may think that he can bail out the ship, but only by getting to know him well do they know that the other party is just a matter of personality, and she has very good relationships with many admirals or ship girls. Although the 2 were friends, and he knew that the other was a ship girl, to this day, he didn't even know what kind of battleship soul the other had inherited. Lia looked at Sugu with her hands behind her back and said with a smile, "We have many girls here. Let me know which one you like." Sugu was a little uncomfortable with such a familiar person, and besides, this was a church. "Hey, What you said, are you a nun or a madam? New admirals are shy easily. It's natural for admirals to fish out the boat. Just treat them well when the time comes. Although my place is nice, it's lonely and not as good as your colorful world. Is it time to lean on your chest and draw circles with your fingers? Then he said, Master, it's been hard for me to wait for you. Although he thought so in his heart, Sugu didn't know how to respond, so he could only smile. There was nothing wrong with smiling anyway. Chen Nan said, the last thing she can control is her mouth. Xiao Su, don't mind. Lia opened her mouth slightly and looked around, and said, Xiao Su. By the way, which confessional were you just in? Well, actually, I have always found the name confessional to be unpleasant and want to change it. But this is a church, and many people think it must be called the confessional. If I had known it would not have been built according to the church drawings when we started building it. Fortunately we did not build a statue, so the budget was reduced. Chen Nan smiled and said, he was in that confessional room. Lia was shorter than everyone else. At this moment, she raised her head and looked at Sugu and asked, then what on earth did you say? Tell me, I am also a nun here. Forget it, don't say it if you don't want to say it, don't look so grim. The place you went to is Exeter. She is a tolerant and righteous girl. It turns out that she came here with her sister, but her sister they couldn't stand the life here, so they left. Well, they were not taken seriously in the town hall before, and it seems that their admiral later abandoned them. Do you think it's disgusting? Yes, Sugu agreed, of course. He was a very unpersistent guy. But just after he finished speaking, he immediately saw York City staring at him. York City knew his details very well, and it seemed that he was that kind of hateful guy. Leah continued, I still like her very much, but I still hope she can have her own townhouse. She is not like us ship girls who never had a townhouse in the beginning. It will be difficult for her to forget the townhouse after she has experienced it. And my own admiral. As she said this, the girl suddenly waved towards the distance, where a tall nun passed by. Hey, Exeter, this way. Leah waved and then said to Chenan, speaking of which, do you know? I met a Prince of Wales last time and had a fight with her. Hello, she is very strong, I think she can crush me to death with one hand. No way. Chenan said this. He knew very well that the other party was very strong. He didn't expect that someone would be stronger. At the same time, Sugu looked at the figure in the distance and suddenly thought that the name Exeter was somewhat familiar. But forget about Exeter, she also has a sister named York. Ship girls wandering outside rarely have sisters. After all, it's either the same type of ship or sisters. Generally speaking, they either belong to the same garrison, or they were together when they woke up, or they lived together for a long time. Only in this way can everyone become sisters. Exeter here originally had a garrison, but the admiral left the garrison and the garrison fell apart. Why does this plot feel so familiar to people? It is exactly the same as my own experience. Does Exeter have one themselves? Yes, I fished out Exeter and her sister York during the game's activities. Originally, I wanted to fish out Vanguard. Sugu thought deeply, then his Exeter is most likely his ship girl. Then he thought about what he said in the confessional. Although it was not a real secret, he had revealed his evil thoughts, so it was best that this Exeter not be his own Exeter. Thinking like this, he suddenly heard the voice of York City. Admiral, your expression looks very troubled. What's wrong? When Sugu came back to her senses, she realized that York City's entire face was only a few centimeters away from hers. She could clearly see his delicate eyebrows. Although he was very beautiful, the confused expression on his face ruined everything. At this time, she still thought reach out and touch your forehead. So he immediately knocked off York City's hand. York City said, I don't care about you, I just received the favor from Sister Akagi and Sister Lexington. Only a fool would have thoughts about a fool like you. Your concerned expression makes me feel like I won't be able to survive today. York City slandered him in his heart. Facing a girl's concern, he acted like this. It would be best to remain single for the rest of his life. But it's still hard to think about it. The performance of Sister Akagi and Sister Lexington is worrying, and they are not cooperative at all. However, York City still asked doubtfully, is there really nothing wrong? Nothing. Speaking of which, what did you say in the confessional? York City was very curious, and she really wanted an excuse for her admiral, so she said casually at this time, hoping that Sugu would relax his vigilance. York City had a curious expression, his feet were still touching the ground, and his face was slightly red, which made people know that he was uneasy and well-intentioned at a glance. I didn't say anything, I just went in and stood for a while. Liar. No. Forget it, I won't talk to hypocritical people like you. Chen Nan was still chatting with Laya. Sugu made up his mind to tell Chen Nan that he would leave here for now. He looked at the colorful windows outside and thought about how to speak without looking weird. He looked at the flower windows and the murals, but at this time his mind was not at all on those glorious and magnificent murals. At this moment, I thought to myself that it was best to leave as soon as possible. Regardless of whether she was my ship girl or not, I could ask Lexington to come by then, and she would definitely recognize her. But even so, there is still no way to avoid it. No matter what happens when the time comes, let's avoid this disaster for now. Thinking like this, Sugu suddenly heard a voice. Hello. Sugu turned around and saw that she was a nun in a black nun's outfit. The black nun's outfit covered her tightly, and only her delicate face and a bunch of long pink hair could be seen. Judging from the voice and expression, it seems that this is a very weak ship girl, and the voice is indeed very familiar. At this time, the other party was looking at him from left to right, showing a puzzled and hesitant expression. Sugu was silent for a moment and responded casually, yes. Hello, I would like to ask, are you an admiral? Most of the people who came here were admirals. Sugu still dealt with it, yeah. Is your name Sugu? The town guardhouse is, to the west of here. If you know your name, the possibility is very high, and you can basically confirm it. Sugu was silent for a moment, then saw the other person's expression that he would not give up, and said, my surname is not Su, I am still a student, I don't know what you are talking about, even if he is treated as an ostrich, even if he is avoided in the future, but it's okay. At least it's better not to recognize each other when we leave now, otherwise it will be super embarrassing. However, as soon as Sugu finished speaking, York City, who heard the conversation on the other side, laughed loudly and said, Su, why isn't your surname Su? York City had already resented Sugu for always teasing him about dating someone, but he usually didn't have a chance to retaliate, so now that he saw a rare opportunity, he said it immediately. As for anything else, she paid no attention to the occasion or the situation. Sugu's fists in his sleeves suddenly clenched. York City, you idiot, I will definitely wear small shoes for you in the future. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 110. There were many unpleasantnesses in my past life, that is, living in the tutelage for a long time like a transparent person. If I want to talk about pleasant things, it is probably because I met many companions in the townhouse. The first one to talk about is of course my sister York, and later I met Salt Lake City and Pensacola. They are all my good friends. It's also a great time for everyone to get together. Of course, if you think about it maliciously, you can call it a gathering of losers, but I don't care. However, no matter how pleasant or unpleasant the past life was, for a ship girl like herself, being able to find her own admiral is a joyful thing, and there is no need to delve into the past. Exeter was sitting on a bench on the edge of the large square outside the church. She was looking at a large fountain in the center of the square. She remembered that occasionally people would throw coins into the fountain and make a wish, but the church she was in was not a serious church, so making wishes was probably useless. It seems that a long time ago, his companion Leah bought some goldfish and red carp from somewhere and kept them in the pond. However, the goldfish died quickly, but the red carp were still alive. Later, there was a vendor selling fish feed nearby, which was very popular with children. The vendor's price was right and it was good for the fish, so no one stopped him. It's just that now these fish will gather together whenever they see someone sitting next to them. They are such unconscious fish, and they will bend over backwards just for a little feed. Not long ago, some people wanted to fish coins from the fountain pool. However, the water in the fountain pool was quite deep, and small coins were not worth much. Fishing for coins also ran the risk of being beaten, so until now, they have not done so. People do things like this. At this time, the pigeons on the square flew into the sky with the running and shouting of a little girl. Exeter sat on the bench and swayed her legs. She was not a stereotyped person, and she acted like a little girl at this time. She is wearing a black nun's outfit, with long pink hair flowing out from both sides. Compared with the tempting nun's outfit in the original game, this nun's outfit is obviously much stricter. This is a serious nun's outfit. At this time Exeter said, after Hood left, I followed my sister. I left, but no one seemed to notice us. We went to many places, and then we came here, so we became nuns. Although we are called nuns, we can't really say that they are very pious. The reason why we stay here is because we can help many people. Listening to Exeter's words, Sugu's face became strange. Although he didn't want to ask, thinking that there was no other way now, he still asked, speaking of which, was it you who was talking to me in the confession room? Yeah, I didn't expect the Admiral to have so many thoughts in his heart. Exeter's eyes were clear and she had no intention of hiding it, with a faint smile on her face. When Sugu originally said what was in his heart, he was thinking that the person would not have anything to do with him. He did not expect that such an embarrassing thing would happen. The evil thoughts in his heart were all known to his ship girl. At this time he wanted to slap his own mouth. Exeter blinked, speaking of which, Admiral, why would you deny it? I knew it was you when you said that nondescript dialect. You never use the word I. Sugu sat next to Exeter, with his shoulders slumped and looking weak, and said, that idea is very perverted, that's why. That's right. Exeter nodded with some understanding. It was really embarrassing for people who knew her to know about those things. She was not a glass-hearted person either. Just thinking about it, she said mischievously, but I might be disappointed. Sugu said, but if you leave disappointed, maybe I will stop you again and tell you that I am your admiral. Anyway, I feel like an ostrich just like his mother used to see him. She delivers fruits to her in the room. Every time she comes in, she will find that her computer has been cut into the desktop. There are some things that she can't help but be afraid of. What does ostrich mean? Some of the jokes Exeter certainly didn't know. Bury your head in the sand and pretend nothing happened. Exeter chuckled and said, what's the use of pretending nothing happens, it's already happened. Sugu clapped his hands and said, so that's it? I was thinking about a lot of things in my mind. Before I could decide what to do, you suddenly appeared and startled me. So I just said it casually. I don't know what you are talking about. That's my fault. Sugu said sincerely, my fault. Then let me guess who the little girl you are talking about is. Who met you first? Is it a fantasy? No. Lafitte? No. Exeter curled his fingers and put them to his lips with a puzzled look on his face. I remember you like these two the most among the destroyers. Is it them or someone else? Little House. Exeter was a little annoyed. Forget about her, forget that she is also a little girl. Speaking of what the plot of White Rabbit Candy is, I have never heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, it's best not to listen to it. Anyway, I think the ending is quite perverted. Exeter seemed to have discovered her admiral's distress about his evil thoughts being known to others. She said, "Actually, what you said is nothing. There are many admirals who have even more perverted thoughts." Of course he was distressed, and it was impossible to get better with Exeter's words of comfort. But Sugu was a little curious now, so he asked, "Tell me about it." "Tell me?" "I can't tell you. Even if it's your request, the Admiral, I can't tell you other people's privacy." Sugu was not someone who liked to embarrass others, so he said, "Okay." Exeter suddenly said, "Compared to this, the Admiral is completely different from before." "Before? What was I like before?" Every ship girl has a different opinion about her past image, and she wants to hear it now. Exeter recalled the past and said, "In the past, what should I say? I was more free to do whatever I wanted. I didn't care what everyone thought. I could do whatever I wanted. Basically, there would be no entanglement." When he was in the confession room, I remember clearly what the Admiral told me. The Admiral was actually entangled in who he liked. He had many evil thoughts in his heart but restrained himself because of moral principles. Compared to the previous Admiral who did whatever he wanted, didn't care what everyone thought, and didn't care about people's mood, the current Admiral is much better. Exeter whispered, "Although I have no sense of presence in the town hall, I have heard a lot of rumors in the town hall. In the past, you loved to harass Helena and let people stay in your office wearing swimsuits. Even if you don't agree with it, you always want to poke people. Poke Helena's breasts or pull Helena's swimming trunks, and then look at their red faces while laughing next to them." Exeter has been here for a long time and has interacted with many admirals, some of whom are powerful and some of whom are weak. At this time, even though she had a dark history as an admiral, she had no scruples about speaking out like this. She was no longer the weak ship girl she had been before. Being regarded as a pervert, but that was because of the game, Sugu quickly explained, "It was an accident, it was an accident." Exeter responded casually. She didn't know whether she believed it or not. She guessed that she didn't believe it. She asked, "Admiral, why did you come here? And who is that person?" "That means you are that person." That person was talking about York City. Of course, Exeter had never seen him in the garrison before, but she could tell that he was very close to her own admiral, so she asked at this time. "York City is a difficult guy to deal with. Although he is outspoken, he is a very nice person. As for the reason why I am here, it is because I am doing an internship and I am accompanying my leader here." "Internship? We don't have such a strong garrison anymore." Exeter tilted her head cutely, and a white dove fluttered and landed next to her, so she reached out and stroked the dove's feathers. Sugu sat on the bench, thinking about the port area that had become a ruin, and said, "It seems that you have never returned to the town hall." There was no blame in his voice, but Exeter blushed at this moment, thinking that he really didn't seem to have been back to the garrison. But after all, she has been living outside for such a long time and has grown up. She said generously, "Yes, I never thought of going back to see it after I came out." Sugu then told what happened in the town guard mansion, and then told his own experience. That is to say, the admiral is still working hard on the affairs of the town hall and is no longer an admiral. "It's great." Sugu said, "My goal now is to get everyone back. Speaking of everyone leaving because of me, and now I want to get everyone back, am I doing whatever I want? Isn't it too much? It's been so long since I've been here, I've gotten used to a lot of things, and it doesn't feel like saying anything like this right now. Get everyone back." Exeter became hesitant as she said this, and she said, "Speaking of which, I met the Prince of Wales here, and she was just like you. She kept what she said in her heart. He asked me once and left immediately without listening to any advice or comfort. Sugu asked curiously, "What did you say to her?" "You can't tell the admiral what you said. Only we can know those things ourselves." "Then do you know where she is?" Sugu thought of Firefly. The cute little girl always thinking about her own affairs would make people worried. Exeter replied, "I didn't dare speak to her, so I don't know." Then she hesitated and said, "Well, Admiral, well, if you meet the Prince of Wales, it's best not to stay alone with her, don't go alone with her, it's best to let Lexington accompany you." She remembered. After hearing what the Prince of Wales said, it didn't sound like it was a joke. "I can't say what the Prince of Wales said at this time, but it should be okay to give my Admiral a little mention."